You guys doing? This is important too in reference to history. And no, I haven't received a semi truck yet. Sleeper truck, ARI, or any truck driving or any big customized semi truck. I haven't received one yet. But my mother and father would have bought me one. And in reference to my revenues as an entertainer, people need to know what artist I've performed as. I'm the owner of the copyrights of my career. I'm the owner of the studios of my mother and father, too, and my grandparents. But anyways, in reference to the semi-truck, I haven't received nothing. I haven't received any papers or any invitations to pick up one anywhere. And I'm supposed to have a Royal CDL license, in reference to my parents and grandparents and family history. Plus, my grandparents, my mother and father owned some trucking companies. And a lot of the companies my mother and father owned semi-trucks too. So, it's very important. And another thing, in reference to people that want to talk about my family history and the facts of my mother and father, and they were great, amazing, wonderful people, and they were frozen, so they might be able to come back to life. But this is very important in reference to history. If my mother and father was alive, they'd buy me one in a second, And if I had access to my revenues and of the companies and my trust funds, I would have bought one too. But these government people are blocking me from my trust funds. They're blocking me from my revenues. They're blocking me from the residuals too. And in reference to music and performing and, traveling, I'm supposed to be traveling in between my mother and father's mansions. I'm supposed to be going snow skiing every year. I'm supposed to be traveling, from state to state whenever I'd go to one of my mother and father's mansions or the next. This situation, I've not received any itineraries of information from any of the attorneys, from any of my mother or father's companies, from any of my mother and father's properties either. I've not received anything from the lawn care companies that do lawn care work at my mother and father's properties. I've not received a letter. I wish they would send me a letter to here, to the Little House 315. But, there's a lot of information about this situation, and society or people out in America, are allowed to talk about my mother and father and what great, wonderful people they are, and what history of my family history and legendary history of, accomplishments and business and sports and things like that. People can talk about that. If the government tries to prevent people from talking about the popularity and the history of my parents, or my history and popularity, it's lawsuits against the government. People are allowed to say things that are factually known and accomplishments, and people can talk and discuss certain gossip or whatever, but, in reference to people slandering my health or slandering my identity or slandering my mother and father's health of what these people was doing, that's attempted murder. My mother and father did not do drugs. My mother and father was not criminals. And everyone that ever accused my parents of some type of bad history are the people that murdered my parents, or they are the people that extorted from my parents, or people that are extorting and stealing from my mother and father's estates. My mother and father never did nothing bad. They were never bad people. I've never been a bad person either. These people slandering my character, those people need to go to court. And I've not received any of the lawsuit monies from any of the abuses. And it is attempts of murder, and it is fraud in reference to courts squatting on lawsuit monies that I was supposed to have received. There's other people that have won court cases against the government, and the government paid them right then and there. But then the government's refusing to pay me, and they're still abusing me. And they've been hitting me in this ear, and it's hard to hear out of that ear right now because they've been hitting me in that ear. Long story, history of things. But the government is not allowed to prevent people from discussing this situation. I've never been a criminal, never did drugs. My parents was never criminals, they never did drugs. People may not have liked them, some people did like them. Some people thought they were wonderful. I love my parents. I love my grandparents too. I love my family history, my real biological family history. And there's celebrity families that have known me for a long time that are friendly with me. And some of them might have tried to send letters, but I haven't received anything from anywhere. So it's more lawsuits every day against whichever people are playing this illegal censorship. people in America, don't forget, my parents were very successful individuals, and they were friendly with many organizations and unions and the entertainment industry and international business too. In the importing and exporting locations of America, they just clamped on my lip. That satellite man just did. That causes teeth damage and lip damage. It's more lawsuits against the government. And this illegal detainment and them squatting on monies and lawsuits and benefits that I was supposed to have received, those people need to get prosecuted. And hello, Colorado Governor, I just called you. Somebody communicated for me to call you. And I left a message on your answer machine. Hope you received it. I don't have the keys to my mother or father's mansions in Chicago. I mean, not Chicago, but Colorado and Chicago. How you guys doing? And so I didn't receive the information in reference to my mother and father's mansion in Colorado or the ski resorts that my father owned. I'm the owner of everything. But, you know, my father had built a mansion for me on the same mansion property of my father's mansion when I was younger and when I was growing up. I don't even have the keys to that either. It'd be appreciated if people would put that on the internet, pictures of the houses on the internet, and tell people which houses they are, like my father's mansion in Colorado, my mother's mansion in Colorado, and then the mansion my father built for me on the same property of my father's mansion. Now, I want people to see that in the internet too. You want people to see things, you know. It's very important.